Hello friends. So today I'll talk about value added fruits and vegetable based products. Jellies I'll be specifically talking about. Yesterday I talked about jam. So 2.3.32, this number of Food Safety and Standards Regulation 2011 talks about fruit jelly. So it says that fruit jelly is obtained from fruits by boiling the fruit juice so as to extract the pectin out of it. So when you are boiling the fruit juice, you can add water or it can be done without addition of water. Then it has to be strained, that is filtered, and then additive sweetener is to be added, and then again concentration is to be done so as to gelatinize the product on cooling, right? And it is important that jelly should be clear, sparkling, and transparent. It should not be syrupy, sticky, gummy, right? And in preparation of jelly, the combination of pectin, sugar, and acid is very crucial so as to get a proper set on cooling. Further, just like jams, the specification on jelly also talks about permitted food additives which are given in Appendix A of these regulations, and Appendix B of these regulations gives the microbiological requirements for jelly. Besides that, the total soluble solids in fruit jelly should not be less than 65%, and as was in the case of jams, the product shall be manufactured from not less than 45% weight of the prepared fruit. Right. Now we will see what is the definition of marmalade as per FSSR. So it is given in number 2.3.34. So this number talks about, like in chapter 2nd, point 3.34, this talks about marmalades. So marmalades are obtained by boiling sound fruits with peel, pulp, and juice. Again, you may add water or it can be done without addition of water, and then nutritive sweetener is to be added, concentration is to be done, so that when the product is cooled, it gelatinizes, and this gelatinization is basically because of the pectin gel. And same as that of jelly, this product should be clear and transparent, and it should not be syrupy, sticky, or gummy. Again, as was in the case of jams and jellies, Appendix A talks about the food additives which are permitted in marmalades, and Appendix B talks about the microbiological requirements for marmalades. But besides that, the other requirements are total soluble solids. It is same as jams and jellies, that is not less than 65%. But in this case, you can have fruit content except peel. So it should not be less than 45%. Again, marmalades, the peculiarity of marmalades is that they have peels in suspension, right? So a specification for peels in suspension is also given under FSSR, and it is not less than 5%, right? And besides that, some regulation or some requirements are also given pertaining to the filling of the jars with marmalades, right? Now we will see that what are the characteristics of jelly. As I have already said that this presentation in this I'll be dealing with just jelly, right? So I'll just focus on jelly in this. So before moving on to the various theories, or before moving on to what is the technology of preparation of jelly, I'll just talk about what are the characteristics of jelly, rather what are the characteristics of a good jelly, right? So first and foremost is that it should be transparent. Then it should have taste and flavor of fruit. This is important. Again, flavor is a combined sensation of taste and aroma. Okay. Then it should acquire a given shape. Okay, so whatever shape we want, if the jelly acquires that particular shape, then it is considered as a good jelly. So that means it should not be flowy, right? Then next point is it should not stick to fingers when it is touched. Okay, and it should not flow when the bottle containing jelly is inverted, rather it should quiver. Then it should give sharp edges. So when you are cutting the jelly with knife, it should give sharp edges. And the recommendations for preparing a good jelly, the various constituents, the recommendations for various constituents is that pectin should be 1%, sugar should be 60 to 65%. But see, as we have already seen in our laws, that 65%, it should not be less than 65%. So therefore I have written here 65%. Then fruit acid is to be added, and the level should be 1%, and water is between 33 to 38%, right? Next we will see the flow diagram for technology of jelly. So first is selection of fruits, then is preparation of fruits. So in preparation comes is washing and cutting. Then next is cooking the prepared fruit with or without addition of water. And why this is done? So as to extract pectin. Then next is addition of citric acid during boiling, followed by straining of the extract, which is also referred to as pectin extract. So after that we go for pectin test, right? So this is done so as to determine that how much quantity of sugar is to be added, or whether the pectin which is extracted from the fruit is good or bad or is medium. Because ultimately pectin is very important, because it will hold the structure of jelly, right? So once we are done with the pectin test, we have to add sugar, and then again cooking or boiling is to be done unless or until we get the end point. So it has to be just. After that, scum is removed, and then we have to add the remaining amount of citric acid, and addition of color or flavor if required has to be done. Then it has to be filled in hot, clean, sterilized bottles. In my previous presentation I have already talked about the regulations, that is FSSR 2011 regulations for packaging material which can be used for packing of jams, jellies, marmalades and these products. Then after that, capping is to be done, and storing at ambient temperature is to be done, right? So now we'll see each of these steps in detail. So first is selection of fruits. So before that, you must know that fruits can be classified into 4 different categories based upon the content of pectin and acid. So first category is fruits rich in pectin and acid. Then is fruits which are rich in pectin but low in acid. Then fruits which are low in pectin but rich in acid. And the fourth category is the fruits which are low in pectin and also low in acid. So I am not giving you the list that which all fruits fall under which category. This will be sort of your assignment, that you just see and just enlist the fruits falling under each of these categories, right? So as I am saying time and again that pectin is very important important for the preparation of jelly. So first of all, we should know what is pectin or where it is found in plant tissues. So it is the middle lamella of the plant cells. This is rich in pectin and it basically cements the cell wall of adjacent plant cells, right? That means it provides strength to the cell wall of two adjacent cells, right? And now in your category or in your classification, you have seen that there are certain fruits which are rich in pectin and acid. So when we are going for selection of such kind of fruits which are rich in both pectin and acid, then the jelly which can be obtained will be less expensive, or rather I should say it will be least expensive than when I am selecting the other categories. Why is it so? Because in other categories I will have to add the commercial pectin or commercial acid or both, right? So as to get a desired ratio of pectin acid in the jelly, right? Then besides this, what are the other characteristics of the fruit that is to be selected? So one thing we have to keep in mind for both jams, jellies, marmalades, that the fruit should not be overripe, right? This is because overripe fruits contain pectic acid, okay, and these do not have the ability to form gel with acids and sugar, right? So instead of overripe, if you are taking underripe, that will be okay, right? Because underripe fruits contain protopectin or pectinic acid, which yield pectin when you are extracting pectin, when you are heating it, when you are adding acid. So as a result of hydrolysis or heating, the pectin is obtained, right? And another is the optimally ripe firm fruits. So they are again good for preparation of jellies, right? So next step is, after selection we have to go for preparation step. So as I have already said that they have to be washed, as was discussed in the jams slides. So after washing, the fruit is to be peeled. So again it is optional, some fruits are peeled, some are not. For example, apples and guavas, they are not to be peeled, while oranges, they are to be peeled, and also the removal of yellow portion is important in case of oranges, right? And then they have to cut in, the fruits are to be cut into thin slices. Then is extraction of pectin, right? So when you are going for extraction, you will have to add little quantity of water if your fruit is not juicy. So the water content, the addition of water content in fruit varies from nil to say 3 times of the water per unit of the prepared fruit. So in case of juicy fruits, there is no requirement of addition of water, because such kind of fruits, the pectin will be extracted in the juice of these juicy fruits, right? For others, you may have to add water. And during this extraction, the time is fixed such that the pectin is extracted, and also so that the protopectin is converted into pectin. However, when you go for prolonged heating, in such cases the fruit gets pulpy and the clear pectin extract is very difficult to obtain. So the next step was clarification, right? So the extracted pectin is clarified by passing through several folds of pre-scalded, squeezed, hot but wet cheesecloth or linen cloth. However, the bags containing pectin extract should not be squeezed, otherwise the extract will not be clear, as some of the particles will come out of the bags, right, from the pores of the bags. Besides this, hydraulic or basket or filter press can also be used. Alternatively, pectin extract could be allowed to settle overnight and the supernatant pectin liquor can be drawn off. So after this, the next step is the pectin test or the requirement of pectin, right? So as I have already said, around 0.5 to 1% of pectin will yield a good jelly. When you are having the level less than 0.5%, then the jelly will not set, and if you are having pectin more than 1%, then it will make the jelly firm and tough. Right, so before we move on to the next step, which is pectin test, I'll briefly talk about the role of pectin in the formation of gel. That is the important thing in preparation of jellies, right? So pectin is a polymer of D-galacturonic acid and rhamnogalacturonan, right? So as the name indicates, D-galacturonic acid is a homopolymer, right, which has galactose unit, and also in this you have some of the carboxylic acid groups methylated, right, and again methylation has an important role in the formation of gel. And the next thing that I said was rhamnogalacturonan. So this is a heteropolymer which has rhamnosyl and also galactosyl uronic acid, right? So pectin is a hydrocolloid, right, and it can be classified based on degree of methylation, and also it could be classified on the basis of time of setting of gel, right? So when we talk about the degree of methylation, as I have just said, the degree of methylation is very important in the formation of gel, right? So it can be classified into low methoxy and high methoxy. So low methoxy contains around 25 to 50% of the methylation, while high methoxy contains around 50 to 80% of methylation, right? Low methoxy forms gel with calcium, while high methoxy can form gel with acid, and this high methoxy pectin is generally used for preparation of jellies, right? Then low methoxy forms a thermoreversible gel, and for high methoxy, the effect of sugar, this depends upon the molecular geometry of sugar. So if you have different kinds of sugar, so their molecular geometry is very important, and how they interact with the neighboring water molecules is again very important. Then low methoxy, in this the calcium acts as a bridge between two carboxyl groups present in the pectin, while for high methoxy, non-covalent forces are generally said to be responsible for formation of gel. For low methoxy, they form gel with lower content of sugar, while for high methoxy, higher content of sugar is required, and again in this acidic medium is very important. So they'll be forming gel with high amount or high concentration of sugar and in the presence of acid, right? The next classification, as I have just said, was based on time of setting. So they are classified as rapid set, medium set and low set. Various theories are given pertaining to the formation of gel in case of jellies. So before taking up each of the theories, let me talk general about it. So jelly formation, as is being said, that it requires pectin, acid, sugar and water in a definite equilibrium, right? And the formation of jelly is due to the precipitation of pectin and not due to swelling of pectin, right? Again, the rate of precipitation of pectin depends upon the constitution of pectin, concentration of pectin in solution, pH and temperature of solution, that is pectin solution, then concentration of sugar in the solution, right? So various theories are being given pertaining to gel formation. In case of jellies, they are fibrin, Spencer's, Olson's, Hinton's. So we will discuss each of the theories in detail. So first is fibril theory. So what does fibril theory say? It says that when you have a pectin solution, right, that means a pectin extract. So when you add sugar to it, this destabilizes the pectin water equilibrium, right, as a result of which conglomeration of pectin takes place, which leads to formation of network of fibrils, and in this interfibrillar space sugar solution is held. So the strength of jelly will depend upon the strength of these fibrils, their continuity and their rigidity, right? So higher the amount of pectin, obviously more will be the number of fibrils formed and more will be their continuity and denser will be the network, right? As a result of which the strength of jelly will be more. Next is firmness of network. So it depends on the concentration of sugar and acidity, right? So when you are increasing the amount of sugar, so what will happen, you are basically reducing the quantity of water, as a result of which less amount of water is to be supported by the pectin fibrils. But if you have low amount of sugar, then you will have to add more amount of pectin because more amount of water will be there, and if pectin is more, then only it will be able to hold the more amount of water, right? Then is presence of acid. So what acid does, so whatever pectin fibrils are formed, acid leads to toughening of these fibrils, and thus it helps in holding of the sugar or sugar solution, right? But if you are adding more amount of acid, then what will happen, hydrolysis of pectin may take place, as a result of which fibrils, they will lose their elasticity and the jelly will become syrupy, right? And if you are adding smaller quantity of acid, then what will happen, the formation of weak fibrils will be there. That means toughening of the fibrils will not be taking place, as a result of which this pectin fibrils will not be able to hold optimum amount of sugar solution, right? So how you will determine that how much amount of acid is to be added? So for that you will see the amount of acid which does not lead to decomposition of pectin, right? So higher amount will lead to decomposition of pectin, so you will have to see that particular level where you can say that this level is optimum enough and it is not leading to decomposition of pectin, and also it is providing toughening to the pectin fibrils. Next is Spencer's theory. So it says that pectin is negatively charged because it has COOH groups, right? And it is stable at neutral pH. Okay, so when you increase the acidity or alkalinity, it decreases the stability of pectin solution, right? Then sugar acts as a precipitating agent, and acid aids in this process, Okay, so when you have greater quantity of acid present, then this makes sure that the requirement of sugar is less. Fine, then there are certain salts that help or hinder in the precipitation of pectin based on their ability to increase or decrease stability of pectin. Then comes this Olson's theory. So again, this theory also says that pectin is negatively charged hydrophilic colloid, right? Sugar in this acts as a dehydrating agent. Okay, that means it disturbs the equilibrium between water and pectin, but this dehydration of pectin micelles does not take place instantaneously, right? It requires some time to bring about this equilibrium. So when you are adding acid, you are basically supplying H positive ions, as a result of which you are decreasing the negative charge on pectin, and therefore pectin precipitates and it forms a network of insoluble fibers. But this will happen only when sugar is present in sufficient concentration, right? So now this system will try to attain an equilibrium again, right? So initially I said that water and pectin are in equilibrium, and sugar, when you are adding, it is basically dehydrating. Okay, so again, when you are adding in pectin solution, you are adding sugar and acid, and when pectin fibrils are formed, again this setup will try to form an equilibrium. So when this equilibrium is reached, the strength of jelly will be maximum, right? Again, there are certain salts or other components which basically change result in or cause a change in the ultimate jelly strength of the system, and this they bring about by either changing the rate of gelation or by affecting the ultimate structure of jelly, or by both of these ways. Last is Hinton's theory. So it is basically based upon the assumption that pectins are complex mixture of variable composition, right? This theory says that gelation of pectin is a type of coagulation in which the coagulated particles form a continuous network. And this is interesting that this theory says that only the non-ionized and not the ionized pectin which enters into jelly formation, right? And to form a jelly, the concentration of non-ionized pectin must exceed a certain saturation limit, which varies with the concentration of total solids in the mixture. Now I'll sum up all the theories, and in a way I'll just tell you what is the role of each of the components, like pectin, water, sugar, acid, in the formation of jelly, right? So pectin is readily soluble in water when the concentration of soluble solids is less than 25%. So that means pectin will be soluble in water if you have the soluble solids content less than 25%. So when you, that means now pectin and water are in equilibrium, right? So when you add sugar to it, that means now you are increasing the total soluble solid content. So as a result of which the available free moisture is removed, right? And pectin will now start dehydrating. Okay, then this will result in precipitation. Okay, precipitation of pectin. So this precipitated macromolecule, this will form a lattice through the gel, right? But since pectin is negatively charged, so pectin molecules in the solution, they will repel each other. Okay, so next step is adding acid. So when you add acid, you are basically lowering down the pH, okay, and you are providing H positive ions, as a result of which the negative charge on pectin moieties will reduce, and the repulsion effect will also be reduced, as a result of which the gel will be obtained. Right, so now I think that the formation of gel in case of jelly is clear to you, and whatever theories we have discussed so far, that is also clear to you. Now we will move on to the rest of the part of the steps involved in the preparation of jelly, right? So we had already seen the extraction of pectin and its straining. Right, now we will see the pectin test, which is very important. Like, it will determine that how much quantity of sugar can be added in this pectin extract or pectin water, because like the strength or the amount of pectin will only tell us that say 1 unit of sugar can be added per unit of fruit juice, or say 2/3 units of sugar can be added, or say half unit of sugar can be added per unit of fruit juice, because your pectin should be able to hold that sugar, okay. So for that we have to go for pectin test. So there are basically two tests. One is alcohol test and the another one is done using gel meter. So in the first one, which is alcohol test, as you can see on the slide, that we take 1 teaspoon of pectin extract, and this pectin extract should be free from pulp, seeds, skins, right? So it is taken in a test tube or in a beaker, and then it has to be cooled. So after cooling, you have to add 3 teaspoons of methylated spirit through the sides of the test tube or the beaker where you have taken the pectin extract. You have to mix it gently, and then you have to allow it to stand for few minutes. After that, you have to pour it on a petri plate, right? So I have just tried to make illustration of it, that how it has to be done. So when this pectin and methylated spirit mixture is allowed to pour down in the petri plate, then suppose you get one transparent single lump or clot of jelly like consistency, that means this is a good pectin, right? And this pectin per unit of this fruit juice can hold 1 unit of sugar, okay. But suppose you get 2 to 3 lumps or clots which are less firm, and obviously they are more fragmented in comparison to the previous that I have just said. So this indicates that the pectin is fair or of moderate quality. And again, in this kind of pectin, for 1 unit of fruit juice you can add 2/3 or 3/4 unit of sugar. But in case you get lot of small granular lumps or clots, that means this is a poor pectin, and you can add half unit of sugar per unit of fruit juice, right? Or alternatively, what you can do, you can add commercial pectin in case of both fair, moderate or poor pectin, right? So in that case you will have to add pectin from outside, right? So next method is viscosity of pectin solution by gel meter. So again I have tried to make a gel meter that you can see on right side. So in this, what you have to do, you have to hold the gel meter from the from the bottom, and you have to cover it, right? And then you have to fill it with the pectin extract or fruit juice, and you have to keep covering the bottom with a little finger of the left hand. So this is how we hold it, right? Then once you have filled the gel meter up to the brim, you have to release the finger, and you have to keep holding the gel meter, but you'll have to release the finger and allow pectin to flow from this gel meter exactly for 1 minute. So as soon as this 1 minute is complete, just place your finger again, right? So then we have to see at what mark does the juice stops, right? So what is the level of the juice in gel meter, and we have to see nearest figure whether it is above or below. So based on this, we can say the amount of sugar that can be added per unit of pectin solution, right? But again, this test has to be conducted when the pectin solution is between 70 to 100 degree Fahrenheit, right? So if it is more than 100 degree Fahrenheit, then it will flow very fast. Okay, so results will not be good, okay, or results will not be accurate, right? So this test has to be done between 70 and 100 degree Fahrenheit. So suppose your pectin solution stops at 1, okay, where this 1 mark is there on the gel meter, it indicates that pectin is good. If suppose it stops at 3/4, so moderate, half is poor. And again, this denotes that how much quantity of sugar is to be added per unit of pectin solution. So the next step is addition of sugar, right? So I have already said that how much quantity of sugar is to be added based on the pectin test. So once the sugar is dissolved, jelly is to be passed through the muslin cloth, several folds of muslin cloth, so as to remove scum or any other impurity, right? But it is very important that once this has been done, once the sugar has been it is dissolved, then it should not be heated for long time, because this will result in excessive inversion of sugar, as a result of which the jelly will be syrupy, and also the color of jelly will be dark, and quickly we have to just heat it on a high flame or high heat. Then next is addition of acid, right? So this I found out in one book, that optimum pH in jelly containing 1% pectin. So if you have a pH of 3, so 60% sugar can be added in such case. If you have pH of 3.2, 65% of sugar, 3.4, 70% of sugar, right? But with higher or lower pH, good jelly cannot be made, and generally the preferred level of acid is 5 to 7 grams per kg of sugar added. Then acid can be added in the form of citric, tartaric or malic acid. So the next is cooking of jelly till the end point. So how we will judge the end point? There are various tests, as we had also seen in case of jam. So first is determination of boiling point by thermometer. So 104.8 degrees Celsius denotes that the jelly is prepared. Then this total soluble solid content 65 degree Brix. Then sheet or ladle test is done, which is again same as jam. Then weight test. So it is said that the finished jelly should be about 1.5 times the weight of sugar used. Then next is drop test. Again, I have tried to make a small figure for your easy understanding. So in this, drop of concentrated mass is poured into a glass containing water. So if that drop settles down without getting disintegrated, this means then that the end point is reached. Then another method is bubble method. So in this, initially when you cook the jelly, small bubbles are formed, right? But towards end, the bubbles turn larger and the color of jelly turns golden brown. But again, this bubble method, only the experts can determine the endpoint of jelly based on this bubble method. For others, I will suggest the other methods that I have just discussed. Next step is filling in bottles. So just before that, we go for removal of scum of the finished jelly, and then it is quickly filled in pre-sterilized containers, so as to pre-sterilized hot containers, right? So in this, hot is important because previously only glass containers were used, right? So this prevents breakage of jars. Then further, when you have filled the jelly in hot condition, it has to be done up to the brim, right? And then the jelly is to be cooled rapidly to 70 degree Fahrenheit, right? So there are two advantages of this. One is that at this temperature the jelly sets quickly, right? And another one is that the jelly will shrink, leaving an appropriate headspace. Then is like, what are the containers in which jelly is to be filled? So this I have already talked about while discussing jams. So this is as per the regulation of Food Safety and Standards Regulation 2011, right? And then the jelly is to be stored at ambient temperature. Now this finishes the technology behind preparation of jelly. Now we'll quickly see, you already know, but again quickly we'll see that what are the factors affecting strength of jelly. So as I am telling time and again, that pectin, acid and sugar, right? These three things are very important. So obviously the strength of jelly will be determined by these three things. So first is concentration of pectin, so it should be between 0.5 to 1.5. Optimum is 1%. Then acidity, so pH value between 2.7 to 3.6, right? Again 3 is optimum. Then concentration of sugar, 64 to 71. So this like I have taken this figure from this reference Vibhakar and Baba. So they say that optimum is 67.5, but again as per Food Safety and Standards Regulation 2011, it is 65%, not 67.5%, right? And then, so this is like we have covered jelly. Now we will talk about defects in jelly, right? They are crystals in jelly, tough or stringy jelly, senescence or weeping of jelly, then failure to set or failure to gel, then cloudy or foggy jelly, and last is fermentation. So, so first is crystals in jelly. Right, so there could be two kinds of crystal in jelly. One could be due to sugar, and another is specific for grape jelly, or where you are using tartaric acid as a source of acid, right? So first is which is due to sugars. So if you have excess of sugar, or when you have gone for over concentration of jelly, so in such cases crystals in jelly occur. And also while cooking of jelly, suppose the syrup has spattered on the sides of the pan, which happens towards the end point, and this generally dries up, right? So when you are pouring such kind of jelly from the sides of the pan, and these spattered dried syrup, this spattered dried syrup has fallen into the jar, so this may act as a source of crystal, and this may act as a source of seed material for the formation of crystal, and the crystals will grow on such kind of seed material, as a result of which crystals in jelly, and these crystals are due to sugar, these can be seen in or felt in jelly. Next, as I was saying, is due to the tartaric acid. So crystals of cream of tartar also sometimes occur in grape jelly, although these are harmless, right? but they spoil the appearance of jelly. So they can be prevented when you have this grape juice stage is there. So when you cool it, this allows the settling of this cream of tartar in juice, and you can prevent the formation of crystals of cream of tartar in jelly. Next is tough or stringy jelly. So there are basically two reasons for such kind of jelly. One is too little sugar for given quantity of fruit juice, and the second reason is continued boiling even after the gelling point has reached. Next is senescence or weeping of jelly. So as the name indicates that weeping is taking place, that means spontaneous exudation of fluid is taking place from the gel. That means your pectin is not able to hold the water, okay, which is water or basically the fluid which is now exudating, right? So again, I think now I have explained you very nicely the theory behind this formation of gel, so you can easily make out what are the factors due to which this senescence or weeping of jelly could take place. So one is excess of acid, right? Next is too low concentration of sugar or soluble solids. Third is insufficient pectin, and the last is premature gelation, right? So first is excess of jelly. So excess of acid. So what will acid do? Acid will hydrolyze the pectin, right? So if you have added excess of acid, so it will lead to the hydrolysis or decomposition of pectin, right? So how you can prevent it? By adding juice which is low in acid, or by adding more pectin so that larger amount of sugar can be added, which helps in reducing the acidity and increasing the volume of jelly, right? So next was too low concentration of sugar. So under such condition, the network of pectin is required to hold more amount of liquid or a fluid than it can hold. So whatever is its capacity, beyond that it has to hold the water in the pectin network, and this results in oozing of excess of liquid. The next is insufficient pectin. So it results in formation of pectin network which is not sufficiently dense and rigid to hold the sugar syrup. So premature gelation causes breaking of pectin network during pouring of jelly into containers, making the jelly weak, which remains broken throughout, right? As a result of which water oozes out. Next is failure of jelly to set or to gel. So there are various reasons which may result in such kind of defect. First being addition of too much sugar, right? So it results in syrupy or highly soft jelly. So again, what could be the troubleshooting or remedy to such kind of problem? So for that you have to add sufficient quantity of fresh strained extract which is rich in pectin, right? So next reason for failure of jelly to set could be lack of acid or pectin, right? Which means that you have added insufficient quantities, okay? Another reason could be cooking below the end point, right? So if you are not cooking till the end point, then you will have a highly syrupy and soft jelly. But again, if you are cooking beyond the end point, then the jelly will become very tough due to over concentration, and this happens when your juice is rich in both acid and pectin and enough sugar is not added to such kind of juice, right? And in this case, ropey syrup or jelly with waxy concentration is obtained, and if acid is in excess, it leads to breakdown of pectin, which we already know. Then the last point, in which results in the failure of jelly to set or gel, is prolonged cooking. So this, when I was talking about the steps also, I have said that prolonged cooking should be avoided, right? So coagulating properties of pectin is destroyed in the presence of acid when you are heating for a longer period of time, and therefore we must avoid the prolonged heating. Next is cloudy or foggy jelly. So this defect could be obtained when we use immature fruits, because these immature fruits, they are rich in starch, which is insoluble in juice, and this gives a cloudy appearance in juice. Then second is when you are using unclarified juice or extract. Then third is when you are overcooking, right? So as I've already said that overcooking results in gummy or sticky jelly, which is due to their high viscosity, and such kind of jellies, they are not clear, right? So they generally appear cloudy or foggy. Then if we have not removed scum before pouring, then the cloudy appearance will be there. And the last point in this is when you are going for overcooling, right? So if you are done with overcooling, the jelly becomes viscous and sometimes lumpy, and this is most of the time cloudy. There are certain other reasons also that may result in cloudy or foggy jelly. That is faulty pouring and premature gelation, right? So faulty pouring means, see, when you are pouring the jelly into your container, so the height of pouring vessel or a pan should never be more than 2.5 centimeter from the top of the jar, right? Else during pouring some air bubbles may get entrapped in, and this results in opaqueness in jelly. So next point, or the last point, is premature gelation. So excess of pectin in extract results in premature gelation, which results in entrapment of air in jelly, and this makes it opaque. So there are certain troubleshooting or remedies to prevent this premature gelation. So these are heating the solution to boiling point and immediately pouring it into containers so as to reduce the time of contact between pectin, acid and the boiling sugar. Next is using low concentration of sugar, then using slow setting pectin, and the last is not using acid during cooking but adding a concentrated solution of acid in the container prior to pouring the cooked juice, right? Now the last defect which may arise in jelly is fermentation. Okay, so fermentation basically takes place in jellies that have already got this weeping, right, or senescence. So in that juice or exudate, fermentation may take place. Then another reason of fermentation could be storage of jelly in a damp place, which basically favors the growth of mold even when the jelly is covered, right? So this can be prevented by hermetically sealing the containers and also preventing the storage at a damp place. So this was all about jelly, right? And so if you have any doubts, you please feel free to contact me through WhatsApp or through email, or you may write in the comments section here, okay? So that I can take up your doubts and I can clear them, right? And one more thing, I'll like to give you an assignment, and that is just write down what are the precautions that one must take while making jelly. Okay, So with this, I thank you all. I hope you understood this topic pretty well, and I would really like to thank my husband and my son because they have provided me a space so that I could record this presentation for all of you. And then on screen you can see the references that I have used. I had already mailed you some of the material, so you can obviously read that in detail. However, I have tried to give you as much of information as is possible in any class lecture, right? Thank you so much, and just let me know if you have any doubts. Thank you. And and yes, keep yourself very safe in this time of very notorious virus COVID 19. Just keep yourself safe, stay at home, and obviously we'll be teaching you through whatever means are feasible, right? Okay, thank you.